So hello and welcome back, coin collectors. So today we're going to have a look at the actual first coins of Vanuatu. So this country is actually called Nouvelle Hebrides or New Hebrides. And this is actually a very strange country indeed. Well, not really a country, just a territory of both France and the United Kingdom. In that they both had actually separate administrations for most of the kingdom, except for the judicial system. So, the judicial system consisted of, especially the High Court or the Joint Court. It actually contained one French, one British judge, and one judge from Spain. So, the Spanish judge was supposed to be a compromise, an impartial between the two British and the French administrations. And also, had separate police forces. The post office is separate, so if you actually look at the postage stamps, they're actually different. And this comes to the actual currency. So, in the French side, so these are actually used all over Vanuatu. They actually use the franc, so the French franc, and here we actually have the coins, and these are actually different than the coins of the other French Pacific for the lower denominations. So they're aluminium bronze. Larger coins are actually nickel. They're the same size as the coins from New Caledonia and French Pacific. The 10 and 20 franc are the same size as the Australian 10 and 20 cent coin. So here we actually have the 20 franc and the Australian 20 cent coin, same size. And on the British side, they actually use the Australian dollar. So I'm not too sure what the actual exchange rate was at the time, but now the actual exchange rate is 80 francs or 80 Vatu to the actual $1 Australian. So I would say that the exchange rate is probably very similar to what it was before. Okay, so I've just looked up some information, and it's actually 100 francs equals 100 Australian dollars. So these are actually equivalent to the Australian dollar counterpart. So here we have a 50 cent would have equaled 50 francs. So that is the two currencies actually circulated. And because, the exchange rate is quite similar, they would have actually circulated quite freely between each other. So it's very interesting. One territory with two different currencies. The only other place I've actually seen that is Andorra, in which the pre-euro, they actually use French francs, so the French currency again, and Spanish pesetas. And that exchange rate was not 1-to-1. I believe it was probably, so you got 5 francs to 1 Australian dollar, and you had about 80 pesetas equaled 1 Australian dollar as well. So that exchange rate was 5 to 800. So really, it's 5 to 80. So that will be 1 to 17. So 1 French franc equals 17 pesetas, something like that anyway. That's just a rough estimate. So that's a bit more of a complicated exchange rate. And also, they actually use the the Creole language, Bisama, which is a Creole of English. So I believe it actually has native grammar with a lot of English and native words mixed in. That's basically what a Creole is. And it's just a very interesting situation of the country of the time. So these were not all introduced at the same time. The 10 and 20 franc were introduced in 1967. The 1, 2 and 5 francs introduced in 1970. In 1972, they issued a 50 francs. They did actually issue a 100 francs of silver that had a mintage of 200,000. But most of these are actually lower mintage coins in themselves. I don't think there is actually a mintage of over 450,000. And the 50 francs was actually a 1 year type, so 200,000 coins issued in 1972. And here I actually have the coins that actually took over after 1983, when after Vanuatu got independence. And as you can see, I've got the 1, 2, and 5 Vatu, and here's the 10 Vatu in replace of the actual 10 francs. So what is actually on these coins? So with the 1, 2, and 5 francs, we actually have a frigate bird. So it is a stylized frigate bird, so it's definitely in the image of one of the actual native tribes in one of our artworks. And then we've got 2 mint marks from the Paris Mint, and we just have the name Nouvelle Hebrides in French. And Hebrides is actually a mountain chain in the UK, in Scotland, and that is what that is actually named after. So a chain of islands in Scotland, like a lot of places. Then we have the 20 franc. As you can see, this actually has a face mask. So here's the eyes, the nose, the mouth. And here we have 2 shells that look like they might be actual nautilus. So I'm not too sure, because they're usually tightly curled. They look like animates actually. And here we have the mint marks as well. Then we have the 100 franc. So this one's supposed to be a totem, and as you can see, I believe this is supposed to be a face, an animal figure, but I'm not really too sure. I can't actually make it out. If you actually have the whole totem and you can actually circle around it, I could probably make out the image a lot better, because this will be in 3D. It wouldn't actually be flat, and this one is in pretty good condition. And on the Obverse, so the Obverse is the face of the coin, we have Mariana in a Phrygian cap. So that is her. Mariana represents France, IAIM, so that's the name of the actual issuing body. And here we have the name of the person who actually designed the coin, Republic Franchise. And the Phrygian cap, so if you don't know the Phrygians, they were actually a people in Anatolia, so current Turkey, and actually took over from the Hittites, which are pretty much disappeared by around 1200 to 600, and actually formed a kingdom along with the actual what's the other language of Anatolia? So you got Hittite, Luvian, that's it. The Luvian language is actually around for another few hundred years, and that's where we get the Phrygian cap. So this is actually taken off part of their artworks. Very interesting. I like these old languages. And anyway, getting back to these coins, these coins are actually not very cheap. You can actually pick them up. So a set like this is probably cost about, you can probably pick them up for $20, I would say. If you want to get the actual 100 franc, you're probably paying $20 to $30 individually for that coin just by itself. But if you want these ones, probably about $20 is probably the minimum, basically. I have seen them go for about $5 on auctions, but that's, I would say, the actual seller probably actually lost out on those auctions, and they're just an interesting coin set to get because of the actual history of the actual country. Anyway, I'll leave a link down below to coins of Vanuatu in case you're interested to actually purchase stuff. And I hope you enjoy just a little bit introduction and an informative video on the first coins of Vanuatu. So I'd like to say thank you very much and have an awesome coin and banknote collecting time. Thank you and goodbye.